Hello, everyone. I'd like to introduce you to Patricia, who was awakened by Meher Baba 30 years ago. And this will be a short video about her life with Baba. Hello, Patricia. I'd just like to ask you, when you came to Baba, which was 30 years ago, and how that happened, and what differences this has made in your life since then.
Right. Well, it's the awakening with Meher Baba is like a big light being switched on within, and it's like things that you didn't know about yourself and didn't know about a spiritual journey come forwards, and you start to, a new part of you starts to open up. And I had got no idea about divine love, and I'd got no idea that there were masters like Meher Baba in India, who was said to be perfect masters, and God realized, and they've perfected their divinity, and then they share with us to help us to do the same. So I feel like I'm on this journey. It's like climbing a mountain, and he's leading the way. So he puts his footprint down and I follow along the mountain path. So as with all mountains, there's lots of stuff you're going to discard on the way. So I feel like there's a purifying aspect as well, a cleansing of old patterns and old stuff that I don't need anymore. So that's part of being with him. And so I think he makes me a much better person. He makes me a more loving person, and a more kind person, and a more forgiving person. And those processes are still ongoing. So we're not at the end of any of those by any means. So, but I do feel the main thing with him is his tremendous love. And I've felt this right from the beginning, when his first words were, "You are loved, and you have always been loved." And that was kind of new knowledge to me, even though I have been loved in this lifetime. But this was a kind of bigger love. It was like, you've always been loved by God. And so I felt that message was not just for me, but was for everybody I share it with. So if you're there and you're hearing me, that message is for you as well. You too have always been loved by God, because God is love. So I think that's a really good Bible message for you.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Yeah, so in your book, Awakening to Divine Love, you speak of many different ways you can keep in touch with Baba and keep him active in your life. Could you perhaps tell people a little bit about a few of those?
Yes, well, because Baba came to me on an inner level, he had died in 1969, and he didn't come to me until 1992. So I haven't met the physical Meher Baba. I've met the Meher Baba who is exactly the same, but he is on a spiritual level within us. And that's the Meher Baba that I interact with. And I have found wonderful ways of communicating with him through his many photographs. And in his lifetime, I feel like he's energized these photographs so that he can be very present within them. So if you want to interact with him, and you download a photograph of him, one where he's looking straight at you, then you can interact and talk to him through that photograph. You don't need a photograph, of course. You can just say his name, Meher Baba, I want to tell you this, or I want you to help me with this. And he will behind the scenes do both of those things. So the thing is, when you interact, there should be no doubt whatsoever. You just talk to him, and you know that because he claims, and I believe he is God in human form, he hears you. I think whenever I've spoken to him, I don't think I could say that he's ever not heard me. And at some point, I've always got a response in some way to what I've asked for. It may not be for weeks or even months, but when something happens, then I'll think back and think, oh, that's the answer to that little prayer that I put out, or that question that I asked. So I think it's good to pray to Meher Baba if you are in some difficulty. That is another way of interacting with him. And it's good to pray for your family and your friends and your pets and your animals. And if you want somebody keeping safe, then pray to Meher Baba to keep them safe. And so you can interact in those ways. I think you can meditate. In other words, you get very quiet within. Maybe play some quietening music that takes you away from your normal life and can move into your heart. And then you can speak to Meher Baba from there, because he lives in the heart. So you can speak to him then. All things take practice. Don't sort of try it once and then it's like, oh, didn't feel anything. Carry on doing it. Do it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then you can be able to see how it's working for you. And on an inner level, he might give you some little prompts or little prods as to try something different. One of the ways you can start a meditation with him is to repeat his name, Meher Baba. You can sing it, you can buy tapes, and you can go on YouTube and hear people singing the words Meher Baba, and that will put his presence all around you because of the vibration of the words. And that way you will be getting his presence before you do your meditation.
Yes, I like that. I personally, because I came to Baba about 20 years ago, and within a short time I met my wife, Sue, and we got married, and she was not a Baba lover. She sadly died last year, but all through those 20 years, I loved Baba, and I tried to remember him often, but it was, to be honest, there were a lot of distractions. And since my wife died, I tried to remember him everywhere I go. So if I'm walking down the stairs, each step is ba, 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 ba. If I'm in the toilet, I'm talking to him. If I see his picture, I stop and I talk to him. If I'm out in nature, I try and see him in nature, and I try to repeat his name inside, and also I try to tell him I love him on an internal level. So I'm kind of like, in a way, I'm talking to Baba in my heart. So I try to just keep him in my life as much as possible. And the more I do that, the more I realize his love for me. And that's exactly what he said all those years ago, was the more that you remember me, the more you will realize my love for you. And it is so true. And I have an unbelievable time sometimes with him just by remembering him and telling him I love him on an internal level.
That's amazing. That's lovely. That's how it should be. It's just simple and it's natural.
Yes.
There's nothing complex about it. And and I think that's what he likes. He likes simplicity. Yeah. No big rules about it. Doesn't have to be any particular place. You can be anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I think, is just plenty of little things to do there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Ways to get in touch. And it's all in you. Remember, it's all in you. You know, it's like God is out there in the plants, in the world, but the personal contact is within you. And that's what you need, because that will grow it within yourself.
Mm.
Yes.
I also think it's important, but I don't do this yet, but I should try and do it more often, is when you're talking to anyone, you should try and think this person is, has God within them as much as anybody else. Whoever it is, you should try and remember that you're actually speaking to another form of God.
Yeah. I think that's true. Difficult though it is sometimes. Huh?
It is, especially with awkward people, or people. But then Baba says, to love him, you have to try and love the people you cannot love.
That's true. Yes, yes, and of course we're in a world of duality. That's what we're experiencing: the ups and the downs, and the highs and the lows. So you never know. When somebody looks troubled, you see the trouble, but you don't see behind the trouble. That's that's what you're saying, I think.
Yes.
And you can pray for those people as well. Those people who you see are troubled, pray for them. Yeah. As you go along, as I'm out and about in the street, wherever I am, if somebody comes by who looks troubled, have a little prayer to Baba to bring some help for that person. And again, the very simple ways, just in your ordinary life, that you can be with Meher Baba.
That sounds great. I was also going to ask you if do you think Baba would say anything different today in 2022 than he perhaps would have said all those years ago when he was in the body? Do you think he'd have anything different to say now?
I think he would probably say the same things, and I think he was saying things really for the general public, so that we didn't get into too much trouble. We knew which direction we could go in, and his book God Speaks and Discourses contain his words and and instructions explaining what life's about. I find this it is something I had no idea of before. He speaks about karma, he speaks about reincarnation, he speaks about marriage, he speaks about the spiritual journey. So all of these things I was ignorant about before he came along. And so I think those words in those books, they are put together in such a way that they carry tremendous spiritual power. And just to read the book, you get that power within you, which slowly unfolds, maybe years, could be lifetimes for all I know. But he did take great trouble when writing God Speaks and also Discourses for our benefit. So I think those stand, and I think they will. I don't see it's like the Bible, if you like. It's our modern Bible. These things are. Yes. And the truth is within it. So I think that stands maybe for all time. But I think individually, if you're interacting with him individually, then that might be a bit different, because he comes to your level. Always he comes to your level and starts working with you and being with you where you are. And so he might say something to you, or that may be a bit different to what he wrote in the past, but it's relevant to you in the now. So I think we shouldn't be rigid on these things, because I think that's what's gone on with religion before. There's this rigid adherence to spiritual truths in a Bible or another spiritual book, and really you need to own whatever relationship you have, and so long as you're in your heart and you're really careful, then get the feeling of what's right for you, as well as reading the books as well.
Yeah,
that's I've needed to read a lot about Meher Baba to get the feeling of what was he like as a person. What did he do that would give me confidence in him? And I think you need to look at his deeds and how he treated people, and the fact that he was a silent master, and thousands of people would gather just to be with him in his silence. Now, who do you know who could sit in silence and have people want to just come and be in that silence, not to particularly listen, but just to be there. So there's a huge presence with Meher Baba. If you watch the YouTube and if you read about him, you'll start to understand more and more about him. And also visit his special places, because you can go visit where he was born, where he lived, and other places associated with him. So you can pick up his trail in that way. Okay,
and I must admit to being a bit obsessive about Baba books, and I've probably got about 25 or 30 of them. But I know you have a reasonable collection yourself. I was just wondering if you could perhaps say which are your couple of your favourites that you recommend to people.
I think the very simple ones about how people come to Meher Baba, and there's, I don't know, 4 or 5 different ones that just give the simple stories of people like myself and how Baba awakened us. And I read them now. I've read them over and over. I just love the way he interacts with people and the world. And people are getting awakened in that way. It's lovely that these stories are recorded.
Yes, Bal Natu was the author of or at least he compiled a lot of those stories, didn't he?
He did, yes. Yes.
Yeah, I love most of his books.
Yeah, I think one is called When He Takes Over with Bal Natu, and they're just lovely. I just love reading these stories of him interacting with people in very simple ways, and switching on the light within them. And they can come from all walks of life, anybody, anywhere. And things can happen through a pet, through an animal, through a person, through somebody speaking to them, through a book, anything at all. So I recommend those kind of books.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that. That's wonderful.
So that's enough.